I'm Kim Jake Tiani. Welcome to Cooler Facts, the show that's full of surprising facts about the world around us. The first surprise is how we're telling you our stories. Fasten your seatbelts for a fun ride of fast-paced video bits. Each one will leave you with something new. We're going to tell you everything you didn't know about living in space, why rain should be the least of your worries of things falling from the sky, and what natural disaster you'd never find at the equator. First up though, and I do literally mean up, some cool facts about skyscrapers, such as how long does it take window washers to clean all that glass in one of the tallest buildings in the world?
Nothing conveys the remarkable heights of human ambition quite like the skyscraper. That ambition has translated into an endless global battle to build bigger and better ones. But just how high can we climb? The intense competition to produce the world's tallest skyscraper began with the invention of the safety elevator in 1856. There were elevators before, but they were simple platforms hoisted up by cables. If the cable snapped, they'd plunge to the depths. Inventor Elisha Otis came up with the idea of attaching special vices that would clamp into place when a cable broke, holding the elevator up. The Bessemer process represented another major advance. Steel, an alloy of carbon and iron, had been around for centuries, but it was always too expensive to produce. In 1855, Henry Bessemer came up with a less costly way to do it, by blowing air through molten iron to remove the impurities, giving steel its signature look. Another giant leap came in 1871, the year of the Great Chicago Fire. Devastating at the time, but not in the long run. The disaster destroyed 18,000 buildings. It also turned Chicago into a hub of building technology. Overnight, Chicago transformed into a gleaming, towered metropolis. Ground value grew from a few $1,000s to more than $5 billion. Today, it is home to some of the greatest buildings of the 20th century. By 1930, the world's tallest building was this, the Chrysler Building in New York, a tribute to the auto. The stainless steel exterior resembles a car's chrome. Here, on the corners of the 61st floor, are replicas of the 1929 Chrysler hood ornament. And down on the 31st floor, replicas of the 1929 Chrysler radiator cap. In 1931, New York's Empire State Building stole the tallest title. 381 meters high, it reigned supreme for 41 years. Then, in 1972, the World Trade Center opened, height to its roof 417 meters. 2 years later, Chicago's Sears Tower shot up by about 25 meters. On a clear day, from its sky deck, you can see 4 states: Michigan, Indiana, Illinois, and Wisconsin. In 1998, Malaysia's Petronas shot up 8 meters over the Sears Tower and stole the world title. It takes 2 window washers 2 months to clean all its glass. The Taipei 101 in Taiwan now towers over all the rest. It's 509 meters tall. No ordinary box of glass and steel. It can withstand a Richter 7 earthquake. That's important. It sits roughly 2 blocks from a major fault line. Even Taiwan's famous typhoons and fierce winds are no match for it. Thanks to this, a tuned mass damper, the world's largest and heaviest, weighing in at 730 metric tons. Seismic vibration causes its enormous sphere to shift, at which point its 8 viscous dampers act like shock absorbers. The device then counteracts the building's movement by making it sway in the opposite direction of the force. But another building is rising in the desert that will surpass it. The Burj Dubai in the United Arab Emirates, slated for completion in 2009. Its exact height is top secret, but experts say it will soar up at least 700 meters. If it does, it'll be the tallest man-made structure of any kind in history. The Burj is the crown jewel in Dubai's massive building boom. Industry experts say that about 30,000 construction cranes are in operation here. That's 24% of the world's 125,000. If you think the Burj marks the end of the sky race, think again. Right now, plans are in place worldwide to fulfill the dream of the mile-high building. That's 1.6 kilometers, or 1/10 of the way to the ozone layer. Right now, it's just in the dream phase, but the technology is in place. Skyscraper builders are just waiting for the nod. So are the window cleaners. There will be lots of windows.
Wow, I can't believe that 25% of the world's cranes are in Dubai. The sky really is the limit, and as you're about to see, there is no limit to what can fall from the sky.
Many people think Henny Penny screaming, "The sky is falling," is nothing but the hysterical rambling of a chicken. However, Henny Penny may have been onto something. Consider what happened in August 2004 in Shropshire, England. Just another stormy day until the clouds opened up and down poured fish? Yes, about a dozen live minnows were picked up by a combination of strong winds and a waterspout over the ocean, and then dumped 80 kilometers inland, on an unsuspecting parking lot to be exact. In fact, fish, frogs, and other small creatures are often swept up in this manner, but you might prefer those critters to an encounter with blue ice. You know that blue liquid disinfectant in toilet bowls? Well, blue ice is the sanitized term for the chunks of ice that form from leaks underneath airplane holding tanks. And yes, it does include human waste. Most often it melts and dissipates over wide swaths of ground. But if that's not disgusting enough, on occasion big chunks of blue ice and feces smash into the ground, damage houses, and dent cars. Speaking of man-made aerial hazards, when it comes to scale, nothing outdoes Skylab, America's first space station. It fell to Earth over Australia in 1979, but since most of the debris burned up on re-entry, no one was hurt. Australia did, however, have to deal with space junk cleanup and ended up fining the U.S. $400 for littering, a fine which is outstanding to this day. A newly identified, yet largely mysterious phenomenon called megachirometeors may be the most dangerous thing falling from our skies today. They are large hailstones that form in the atmosphere and weigh up to 4 kilograms. That's 4 times the size of the largest recorded hailstone, and about the size of a healthy newborn baby. The mystery lies in the fact that megachirometeors fall from clear blue skies without any warning. Italy and Spain were impacted by a rash of them in January 2000. Although no one has yet been killed by the megachirometeors, a Spanish woman from Almeria was struck in the shoulder and knocked unconscious by one. And no, her name was not Henny Penny.
I can see future weather reports now. Feces with the afternoon chance of Skylab. Coming up next on Cooler Facts, a natural disaster with the force of 200 cars traveling at the speed of a 747. Don't blink. Welcome back to Cooler Facts. We've all heard the saying, war is the mother of invention. And nothing could be more true than with the development of the bomb. Here are some startling facts of how the bomb has developed over time and how even bats and rats have played a role.
Throughout history, humans have found very creative and curious ways to blow things up. Some of the first bombs date back to the Crusades. In 1095, armies defended their castles using clay pots filled with flammable liquid. Soldiers lit them on fire and hurled them at their attackers. The first hand grenades. Weapons development really intensified when armies took to the sky, dropping explosives on their enemies from the air. The first aerial bombs rained down from balloons. Zeppelins or airships were used to bombard England during World War I. Down on the ground, the British were disguising bombs in rat carcasses. Special agents would hide the rodents in wood piles next to boilers in German factories. In went the wood, and the factory would go up in smoke. During World War II, the U.S. hatched a plan to bomb Japan using bats carrying time bombs. Bats, after all, can carry up to 12 times their own body weight. The idea was to drop them over mainland Japan at night. They would then find a place to curl up and sleep in or around buildings during the day. Then the bombs would explode. That was the theory, but the bats proved to be unreliable, so the whole project was dropped in mid-1944. Welcome to the nuclear age. By the 1960s, the Soviet Union came up with this behemoth, the Tsar, 8 meters long by 2 meters in diameter. It had a yield of 50 megatons. That's equal to all the explosives used in World War II, times 10. It was detonated in 1961 over an island in the Arctic Sea with frightening results. But nothing is more frightening than the idea of the cobalt bomb, a hydrogen explosive coated with cobalt, the fallout from which would kill all life on Earth. No superpower admits to ever having one or creating one. After all, what's the point of killing everything? Still, the doomsday bomb is well within our technological reach. When it comes to bombs, it would be our greatest achievement, but no one would be around to celebrate.
Although not quite on par with blowing up the whole world, nature also can pack quite a punch. When it comes to natural disasters, hurricanes and earthquakes immediately come to mind, but nature's most powerful fury comes in a different package.
Avalanches are so violent that when they strike, researchers treat them like crime scenes. About 1 million avalanches occur each year. In 2005, a 500-meter wide shelf of snow and ice tumbled down an Alaskan mountain. Its volume was 400,000 metric tons, enough debris to fill about 22 football stadiums. It would take 75,000 dump truck loads to move it all. Avalanches can splinter trees into toothpicks, blast roofs off houses, and hurl trees through walls. In one case, the force of an avalanche wrapped a cargo van around a tree, its front and back end kissing each other. It had been flattened into the thickness of a phone book. Turns out the avalanche is not only one of nature's most fearsome weapons, it's also its most powerful bulldozer. In 1999, an avalanche buried the Austrian resort of Galtur. Its mass weighed upwards of 300,000 metric tons and roared down the mountainside at nearly 300 kilometers an hour. A healthy snowfall over your average-sized house weighs as much as a car. Now imagine over 200 cars coming at you at the speed of a 747 taking off. All avalanches are due to a weak layer below giving way to a heavier one above. Between these two layers, experts at Galtur discovered something called a saltation layer, a tumbling mixture of light and heavy snow. This newly discovered layer causes the avalanche to increase in volume as it descends. It works by churning the layers of untouched snow beneath and binding with them, creating larger and larger particles, increasing the gravity of the falling snow mass, and therefore the speed. Here's something to chew on. If you happen to get caught in an avalanche, there's a 95% chance that you were the trigger.
Maybe that's why I don't ski. Cooler Facts will be right back. Stay right there. Welcome back to Cooler Facts, the show that unearths the hidden treasures of science and technology. I'm Kim Jake-Tiani. It seems inevitable that humans will one day be living in space. Sounds good to me. The view's gonna be spectacular. I've always wanted to float around in zero G. And if you like more than one sunrise a day, this is the place for you.
So you want to travel to space. The view alone is worth the trip, but be careful what you wish for. Living up there presents many challenges, and that's an understatement. The right suit is essential, especially for a spacewalk. NASA's EVA, or Extravehicular Activity Suit, is up for the job. Essential, but not cheap. It costs $12 million. Well worth it. Without its pressurized comfort, you wouldn't last long. In the harsh vacuum of space, lack of oxygen in the blood causes death within 2 minutes. The hardest thing about living in space is that you must rely on people on the ground for everything, which is one major reason NASA hasn't yet returned to the moon, even though they are itching to. The expense of carrying essentials is a major hurdle. Shuttling just a kilogram of water to space costs about $5,000. So instead of flying it in, the space agency is developing a machine that will recycle astronauts' urine and even exhaled breath and turn it into drinking water. The device will purify these fluids using chemical membrane osmosis. By this process alone, all 7 astronauts on any given mission will have all their daily water needs covered. They'll need all that water to wash down the spicy food. One of the mysterious impacts of zero gravity on the body is that it blunts the palate. Food tastes flat and bland, so astronauts pile on the seasonings. Members of the Space Shuttle STS-46 mission in 1992 revealed that small packs of hot sauce became a medium for barter. If you were up for latrine duty, hot sauce could get you out of it. Salt and pepper is available, but only in liquid form. Ordinary salt and pepper particles would float up and clog vents. Living in space has its advantages. One is that it makes you taller. Decreased pressure on the spine causes astronauts to sprout about 5 centimeters. It can also cure snoring. A 2001 study says snoring stops once you're up there. Down on Earth, snoring happens when the tongue drops to the back of the throat, partially blocking the airway, causing tissue to flap. Of course, gravity does not exist on any spaceship, yet. No gravity, no tongue blockage, and no snoring. But still, you won't get an ideal sleep up there. The sun rises 16 times a day, throwing off your inner time clock. Despite recycling your own urine, the bland food, and poor sleep, traveling to space remains humankind's most enduring dream and the most prized experience to anyone who has made the journey. Just look at America's first spacewalker, Ed White. He described being ordered back inside his Gemini craft after a daring extravehicular walk as the saddest moment of his life.
Okay, the view is unbelievable, but living in space isn't going to be easy. Then again, living here on Earth isn't that easy either. We picked some pretty crazy places to live on this planet. For instance, how do you protect a city that's built on a floodplain?
All the people on Earth, 50% of us live in cities, but they're not always in the most ideal location. So some builders have developed extreme ways to cope. The Dutch city of Rotterdam is under the constant threat of flooding. The solution is a gigantic sea barrier with arms that are 300 meters long. They're each as long as the Eiffel Tower is high. But each arm is 4 times heavier than the tower. In a storm, the huge gates slide into place in under 2 hours, blocking the rising water that could threaten the international harbor. In New York City, they're also worried about water, but it's drinking water. The 2 old tunnels that deliver the city's water are leaking and can't keep up with the demand. That's why for 50 years, workers have been digging a huge 90-kilometer-long third tunnel. It stretches from a water reservoir north of the Bronx to right under Manhattan. The tunnel will be at least 150 meters underground, 10 times as deep as the subways. When it's complete in 2020, it will supply New Yorkers with 19.2 billion glassfuls of drinking water a day. In nearby Hong Kong, they were faced with landing a jet plane on one of the most crowded islands in the world. Before 1998, landing at the former Kai Tak Airport was notorious. At just 100 meters above ground, heavy jets needed to make a quick 40-degree turn to hit the runway that lay in between the dense jungle of apartment buildings. Planes came so close to dwellings that passengers could actually see people doing their laundry. The solution was not only to build a new airport 16 kilometers from the city center, but to build it out of rubble. Demolition crews flattened 2 hilly islands and filled the gap between them with the excess material to create a mostly man-made surface. In Montreal, where winter temperatures dip below minus 20 degrees Celsius for weeks on end, the solution is 32 kilometers worth of underground city. It's the world's largest underground mall, and it covers the same area as 11 championship golf courses.
Looks like it's all about location, which is also true about hurricanes and cyclones. Now, which one is which? We're gonna find out right after the break. pretty powerful show so far. Avalanches, bombs, things falling from the sky. Let's say we finish up with something a little bit more mellow, like a hurricane.
Packing more punch than a nuclear arsenal, hurricanes are one of the most powerful forces on Earth. All the TNT ever produced doesn't hold a candle to the muscle of Mother Nature. Measuring up to 900 kilometers across, a hurricane's powerful winds spiral inward and upward from 118 to 320 kilometers an hour. Those top winds flatten concrete buildings in seconds. Fueled by the evaporation of seawater, a hurricane releases huge amounts of energy as vapor rises and then condenses. An average hurricane releases the heat energy equivalent of 200 times the total annual global production of electricity. In the northern hemisphere, a hurricane's winds rotate counterclockwise and drift to the right. It's a result of the Earth's rotation creating the Coriolis effect, a force that causes cyclones to spin and turn towards the North Pole. The opposite happens in the southern hemisphere. Cyclones spin clockwise and drift left. But there's no middle ground. There's almost no Coriolis effect near the equator. No spin means no hurricanes. The destructive intensity of a hurricane doesn't depend on its size. It's if and where the hurricane hits land. Hurricane Camille was the strongest tropical cyclone on record at landfall. In 1969, a Category 5 hurricane, the highest, hit the Mississippi coast with winds over 305 kilometers per hour.
All right, time to blow on out of here, but not quite that fast. We'll see you next time with the facts that will floor you, from the world's scariest roller coasters to animals with heads the size of cars. We'll see you next time for Cooler Facts. I'm Kim J. Tierney. Hi, I'm Kim J. Tierney. Welcome to Cooler Facts, the show that's full of surprising facts about the world around us. Science, technology, and nature. The first surprise is how we're telling you our stories. Get ready for a fun, fast-paced tour of short little video bits. Each one promises to leave you with something new. Today, you'll learn how Velcro got its name and how long it takes one drop of water to travel from one Great Lake to another. But first, some really cool facts on roller coasters. Get ready to pull some G's.
We've all felt it. That burst of excitement, the pounding heart, and rush of adrenaline you get from the feeling of falling and losing control. And there are many ways we try to get that thrill. On purpose. One of the safest ways is riding the King to Ka roller coaster at the Six Flags amusement park in Jackson, New Jersey. From a dead start, riders hit a speed of 206 kilometers per hour in just 3.5 seconds. During that acceleration, riders feel a G-force of 1.7 G pushing their faces. That's about half of the G-force the shuttle astronauts feel at takeoff. The coaster climbs straight up 139.5 meters, the height of a 42-story building, then does a quick 180 and dives back down. This hair-raiser lasts only 28 seconds. Film stunts give many moviegoers the same kind of heart-in-your-mouth thrill of falling. The record for the highest free fall from a building without cable or parachute goes to stuntman Dar Robinson in the 1981 movie Sharky's Machine. He ran through a window on the 21st floor of Atlanta's Hyatt Regency Hotel and dropped a whopping 71 meters. That's definitely not for the faint at heart. Skydivers are constantly pushing thrills to the extreme. On a normal jump, a skydiver hits a typical terminal velocity around 270 kilometers per hour. Terminal velocity is the top speed of a falling object without an external force. The top speed may depend on the jumper's weight and body orientation. By finding a less wind-resistant position, an experienced skydiver can increase the maximum speed to 300 kilometers per hour. That rides nearly as fast as an F1 car at full speed, straight down. It is possible to blow that terminal velocity off the charts if you start in the near vacuum of the Earth's outer atmosphere. In August 1960, the U.S. Air Force's Captain Joseph Kittinger stepped off the gondola of a helium balloon at over 102,800 feet. That's 3 times the cruising altitude of a commercial jet. Without any air resistance, Kittinger's free fall quickly maxed out at 982 kilometers per hour, just shy of the speed of sound. He slowed as soon as the air density thickened. But some people have taken a wild leap without any thought of safety. In 1970, a man in San Francisco, under the influence of mind-altering substances, jumped down an air shaft of the Transamerica skyscraper. Amazingly, after plunging straight down 29 floors, he survived after hitting the concrete floor. He suffered broken thighs, knees, and heels, but no internal injuries. Experts suspected that what saved his life was the increased air pressure in the confined space. It slowed him down. No matter where humans find their big drop, the feel of falling provides a great thrill. And it's mostly free of charge, thanks to the Earth's gravity.
I don't know. I think getting a thrill is one thing, but jumping down an air shaft? Now that's another. I think I'd rather jump in a lake. In fact, in North America, there are 5 great ones to choose from, as you're about to see in these cooler water facts.
Welcome to the 5 Great Lakes in eastern North America. So what's so great about them? Sheer enormity for starters. They hold so much water that if they spilled out over North America, we'd all be waist deep in it. Lake Superior is the largest freshwater lake in the world. Its volume is greater than the other 4 lakes combined, with an additional 3 Eries thrown in. Add it up, and you have more than 1/5 of the world's fresh water supply. The series of lakes is so long and meandering, a single drop of water entering Lake Superior takes some 300 years to make its way through the system. Water flowing out of Lake Ontario today likely carried the canoes of French fur traders in the late 18th century. The Great Lakes are big enough for the moon's gravitational pull to cause tides, though the largest, in Lake Michigan, is just under 5 centimeters. But spectacular fluctuations occur on all 5 lakes. Lake Erie's are the most dramatic, as it's the shallowest. Its levels can change by as much as 2.5 meters. High winds cause some of the largest waves of any lakes in the world. On Lake Superior, swells can reach as high as a 3-story house, hence its status as a storied graveyard to lost ships. The worst of the giant waves are wind setups, when violent gusts push water onto dry land. In the 1960s, one such wave came ashore at Salmon Point on Lake Ontario. Witnesses say the swell forced boats to crash through barn roofs a kilometer inland. That's the same force as some tsunamis caused by ocean floor earthquakes. One wonder that results from all this great water is Niagara Falls. About 4 million liters of water fall every second. In a single day, its gush could fill over 700 billion ice cube trays. That's a lot of ice. Actually, almost 99% of the Great Lakes basin water is melted ice sheets. During the last ice age, ice 3 kilometers thick covered central Canada. As the sheets moved southward, they gouged out colossal basins. When the sheets melted away, the meltwater filled the basins. They don't call them great for nothing.
700 billion ice cube trays going over Niagara Falls. Wow. Now all I need are 700 billion little umbrellas to put inside those drinks. Next up, get out your calendar and a big red pen. We're gonna tell you what's happening on March 16th, 2880. Welcome back to Cooler Facts. Dinosaurs continue to fascinate us. What would their lives have been like millions of years ago? What I want to know is, would a hadrosaur be able to break the speed limit?
Considering their longevity, you'd think all the dinosaurs would have been found, But surprisingly, we're still finding these prehistoric hidden gems. Like Eotriceratops, the world's largest horned dinosaur. This huge vegetarian was the size of a small dump truck. Its skull was as big as a car, and two front horns extended the length of a small man. Nearby in North Dakota, scientists identified an extraordinary 67-million-year-old mummified hadrosaur. Unlike almost all dinosaur fossils, this one retained traces of soft tissue and skin, and that residue has led to new clues. Researchers used a giant CT scanner to calculate the unexpectedly large muscle mass in the tail. More muscle means more speed. Turns out the huge duck-billed dinosaur could run 45 kilometers an hour, at least 13 kilometers an hour faster than the predator T-Rex. Based on complete skeletons, the largest known dinosaur is the Brachiosaurus. It measured 23 meters in length and 12 meters in height, like 2 school buses long and 4 stories high. It weighed the equivalent of 12 elephants. But Brachiosaurus might have had an even bigger cousin in the huge sauropod suborder of dinosaurs. By extrapolating from fragments of leg bones and vertebrae in Argentina, researchers estimate a huge sauropod might have been up to twice the size of its relative. For decades, paleontologists assumed the posture of sauropods meant their long necks stretched as high as possible to eat tall plants and tree leaves. For instance, the Barosaurus was a massive vegetarian with a neck 9 meters long. But that length poses a strange problem. Pumping blood vertically to its distant brain requires intense pressure. After all, a giraffe's heart is the size of a small beach ball and weighs 11 kilos. Based on mammal physiology, the Barosaurus's heart must have weighed 2,000 kilos. That's the weight of a car. But scientists realized that weight would be impossible for the dinosaur's chest size. That knocks out the long-held view that sauropods were hot-blooded vegetarians that nibbled near the treetops. There's a lot of dinosaur history to uncover. If you turned the Earth's history into a 24-hour time span, the dinosaurs roamed from 8 until 10:45 at night, and humans did not appear until the last 30 seconds before midnight. You could say, we are the Earth's party crashers.
So we're the party crashers. Well, scientists say dinosaurs had their party crashed by an uninvited asteroid, literally. Well, since there are billions of asteroids streaking through space, it's a wonder we're not hit every day.
A catastrophic celestial body colliding with Earth isn't just the stuff of Hollywood films. NASA predicts that on March 16, 2880, an asteroid called 1950 DA will get very close to us, with the potential to destroy all life on Earth. The asteroid is about 1.4 kilometers tall, the equivalent of 3 Eiffel Towers. There's a 0.3% chance it will hit Earth, and if it does hit, it will likely be in the ocean, which would cause massive tsunamis worldwide. Asteroids, comets, and meteoroids with orbits near ours are classified as near-Earth objects, or NEOs. These are the rocky leftovers of huge collisions that took place when our solar system formed 4 billion years ago. NEOs can be as small as a grain of sand, or as big as 1,000 kilometers in diameter, about 1/4 the size of our moon. They speed along on average at 25 kilometers a second. That's like flying from New York to London in less than 4 minutes. Comets are bodies of ice and rock formed beyond the outermost planets that have fallen into an orbit around our sun. One of them, Comet Shoemaker-Levy 9, broke up and smashed into Jupiter in 1994. Before impact, Shoemaker broke into fragments. One of them hit with an energy equivalent to 6 million megatons of TNT, about 600 times the entire arsenal of the world. The fireball that followed rose about 3,000 kilometers above the Jovian clouds, roughly the distance between Chicago and Los Angeles. Asteroids have hit Earth before. In 1908, one fell over Siberia. The power of its explosion was about 10 megatons, as powerful as the world's biggest nuclear weapon. It flattened 2,500 square kilometers of land. That's the size of Paris. Many scientists believe an asteroid explosion killed the dinosaurs. And some think an asteroid may have ushered in the Dark Ages. The good news is that modern technology could nudge the orbit of a NEO off course. NASA theorizes that an unmanned spacecraft could hover over an asteroid, pulling it into its gravity, and thereby moving it into a safer orbit. Another deflection strategy: explode a nuclear device nearby, thrusting it off course. This is called an X-ray slap. Clearly, NASA takes the problem seriously. But there's no great panic yet. After all, 1950 DA is still 800 years away. That's a lot of time to fix the problem, and plenty of time for another Hollywood disaster flick.
Well, 800 years is a long time to wait for the end of civilization. Perhaps we should just wait long enough to check out one of Sir Isaac Newton's least known inventions. Here's a hint. Meow. Welcome back to Cooler Facts, a show that opens our eyes to little-known but surprising facts about science, technology, and nature. I'm Kim Jagtiani. You know, I've always wanted to invent something cool, something that would stand the test of time, like one that hasn't changed in over 300 years.
We are surrounded by invention. Sometimes the simpler the invention, the stranger the reason for its creation. Take the humble ballpoint pen. Over 100 million are sold each year. That's more than 3 pens for every Canadian. In 1938, Hungarian journalist Laszlo Biro was exasperated by his fountain pen's ink blotches and liked the idea of using faster-drying newspaper ink. It didn't smudge nearly as easily. Unfortunately, the thick newspaper ink wouldn't flow in a fountain pen. So he designed a pen nib with a tiny ball bearing at the tip. The ballpoint rotated as it slid along the paper and spread ink evenly. When World War II started, the British government bought Biro's patent. They needed a pen that did not leak at high altitudes. Regrettably for Biro's bank account, he had forgotten to apply for a US patent. He should have written himself a note. And then there's Velcro. Swiss inventor George de Mestral walked his dog in the woods. He and the dog would often come home covered in clingy burrs. He inspected the burrs under a microscope and noticed odd-shaped tiny hooks. In 1955, he developed a two-sided fastener with burr-like hooks and soft loops like his pant fabric. Blending elements of velour and crochet, he called his invention Velcro. Some everyday inventions have endured the test of time. For 330 years, cat flaps have provided a handy way for furry felines to come in and out of a house without letting in intruders. The simple but ingenious flap idea was originally attributed to Mr. Gravity himself, Sir Isaac Newton. But it turns out the famous scientist didn't even own a cat.
Now, one invention that changed the world was the car. There are billions of them worldwide, so you'd think we'd know everything about them, right? Well, what about the car that can beat a Learjet?
We're obsessed with cars, and car makers aim to please by pushing the limits of car design, speed, and technology. The US is the world leader in car ownership, 136 million cars, and that doesn't even include pickups or SUVs. If you lined up all the cars in the US bumper to bumper, you could wrap the equator at least 13 times. The average American will spend 4 years of his or her life in a car. That's as much time as high school. Take a look at this beaut, the largest production car ever made. The Bugatti Royale Type 41 was built in 1927 for an uber-wealthy few just before the Great Depression. The car has an 8-cylinder engine, a 12.7-liter capacity, and is more than 7 meters long. Wow. Its hood alone is over 2 meters long. That's bigger than a king-sized bed. Size doesn't matter when time is at a premium. If you've got $550,000 to spare, start up the 2006 British-made Barbarous TKR, the world's fastest street-legal car. The all-carbon fiber body and chassis beast can do 100 kilometers an hour in 1.67 seconds and tops out at 430 kilometers per hour. That's 70 kilometers per hour faster than the takeoff speed of the Concorde. Not bad for 1,000 horsepower. But speed isn't everything. Sometimes parking is more essential. Daimler-Benz's Smart Car can squeak into tight spots and park legally in perpendicular position. It's the smallest car currently in production, measuring less than 2.5 meters in length. You'd need 3 to match the length of the Bugatti.
Oh, imagine fighting for a parking space with 140 million other cars. Sounds like a nightmare come true. After the break, we'll tell you why $200,000 can be a bargain ticket price depending on where you're going. But don't go anywhere just yet. Cooler Facts will be right back. Hi, I'm Kim Jake Tiani. Hardly a day goes by when you don't see a plane overhead. But what about the planes you can see? No, seriously.
Look, it's a bird. It's a plane. Flying machines certainly come in a myriad of shapes and sizes and pack a whole lot of power these days. Like the Airbus A380. This double-decker passenger jet is so enormous it can carry 853 economy passengers. That's the same number of people that can squish into 213 New York taxicabs. The behemoth has a huge range. It can fly from Vancouver to Perth, Australia without stopping. That's 14,800 kilometers. And still, the A380 is a little puppy compared to the Antonov 225, currently the world's largest plane. The Russians built it to transport their spaceships to remote launch sites in Siberia. This beast has a 94-meter wingspan, almost the length of a football field, and it can haul a load of 251 tons, more than the weight of 3 space shuttle orbiters. Other planes try never to be spotted, like the Polecat. It has a 30-meter wingspan and no tail. Kind of looks like a flying wing without a fuselage, like a small B-2 stealth bomber. But this surveillance plane is actually a drone. That means it's unmanned and remote controlled. Designed to be stealthy and sneaky, it flies at 60,000 feet, twice the cruising altitude of commercial jets. To make it as hard as possible to catch on radar, the Polecat is made of 90% composite materials rather than metal. It's even assembled with powerful adhesives instead of rivets. Drones can hover closer to the ground. Police in London, England are testing the 4-rotor battery-powered micro-drone. It can quietly spy from 100 meters above, where it's rarely seen by the unwary people below. It might not be stealthy, but the Ericsson Air Crane is an industry heavyweight with a fine touch. It can place huge hydro towers on top of hard-to-reach rugged mountains, or can carry 10,000 liters of fire retardant to wash out a forest fire. That's the volume of a large hot tub. If that doesn't heat you up, consider orbiting. As of 2009, Virgin Galactic will offer weightless flights. That means flying passengers up to an elevation of 100,000 kilometers above the Earth. That's the same distance as 2.5 times around the planet's equator. Ticket price, $200,000. Guaranteed a great trip and a steal at $2 per kilometer.
That's it for this edition of Cooler Facts, the show that's full of surprises. Watch for more shows with everything from the world's hottest fires to the coolest stars. The ones in the sky, not Hollywood. So long, I'm Kim Jake Tiani. Hi, I'm Kim Jake Tiani. Welcome to Cooler Facts, the show that's full of surprising facts about the world around us. science, nature, and technology. The first surprise is how we're telling you our stories. Get ready for a fun, fast-paced tour of short little video bits. Each one promises something new, from news on the hottest fires to the world's longest bridge, plus comparing our sun to a beach ball. No, really. But first, you've heard of occupational hazards, right? Well, these occupations are hazards.
Work bothering you lately? Time for a reality check. There are some deadly jobs out there, ones that give new meaning to the words occupational hazard. To shipbreakers in Bangladesh, hazards are a way of life. They take apart giant freighters and five-star ocean liners by hand, vessels the size of apartment blocks, 10 stories high. When a ship comes here to die, first on the scene are gas cutters, operational infantry who attack the steel hull with gas torches, reducing it to multi-ton pieces. Another crew then reduces these chunks into pieces the size of a school bus. Finally, porters step in.
One, two, three.
Human cranes shouldering the full weight of the ship, lugging the plates into trucks to be hauled away. Keeping the operation going means men working 7 days a week in temperatures hovering at 50 degrees Celsius. Uncomfortable? Sure, but not nearly as hot as an erupting volcano. Ask any volcanologist, the brave souls who predict when volcanoes will erupt. It's important work. 1 in 10 people live within range of an active volcano, and they can go off without warning. Volcanologists make predictions based on the pattern of the smoke and movement of magma. To get a front row view, they chopper over the crater. Some don't return from the journey. No surprise, explosions can hurl ash and hot rock at hurricane speeds, kilometers into the air, enough to take out commercial aircraft. In 1982, a 747 flew into a plume of volcanic ash from Indonesia's Mount Galunggung. All 4 engines failed. Luckily, the pilots were able to find their way out and restart them. There have been dozens of similar incidents. Smoke jumpers know a thing or two about taking heat at work. The world's most elite firefighters routinely dive into 400-hectare blazes from rickety aircraft, aiming for spots no bigger than a baseball diamond, surrounded in tall timber, wearing 30 kilos of protective gear. At least the Kevlar suit eliminates the risk of getting stabbed by a tree branch on the way down. Fully suited, they would be impervious to the blows of a baseball bat. Off the coast of Louisiana are oil rigs, dangerous by their own right, but travel 60 meters down into the murky depths of the Gulf of Mexico, and you'll see some real danger. This is the workplace of the hell diver, a specialized angler who hunts sturgeon the size of horses. They graze here on this man-made reef, a 3-acre maze of legs and crossbeams. The hell diver hunts here with a spear gun. But if the fish survives the initial assault, he's going for a ride. Like a bull rider getting bounced against the corral barrier, he holds on for dear life in this underwater rodeo. Even the dive itself is dangerous. Here, Martini's law prevails. That's the rule that says every 15 meters of depth equals the effects of 1 dry martini on the human brain. That's a 4-martini dip. It gets worse. At those depths, oxygen can actually become toxic to the central nervous system, causing blackouts, hysteria, and convulsions. Pretty grim things in your living room. Imagine it at the depths of the Gulf. And here you thought your job was killing you.
I think my job is pretty safe by comparison. When we think of dangerous jobs, we think of firefighters, right? Starting a fire is pretty easy, but putting it out, well, that's a whole different story, especially one that's been burning for thousands of years.
Each time we watch a fire blaze out of control, we are reminded of the basic rules of fire. It likes oxygen, wood, and usually extinguishes underwater. But sometimes fire doesn't play by the rules. Take a deep breath. Before the 2002 Sydney Games, the Olympic flame was taken on its first underwater journey at the Great Barrier Reef and kept on burning. That was because a formula of chemicals, including combustible magnesium powder, produced enough oxygen and nitrogen to burn the flame at 2,000 degrees Celsius. Instead of collapsing under the water pressure, the flare generates enough outward force to keep the water from entering the tube. Sometimes no amount of water can stop a fire. In June 1969, Cleveland, Ohio's Cuyahoga River ignited. Oil slicks and industrial runoff from local factories caught fire on top of the water. 5-story-high flames burned for 30 minutes until firefighters squelched them. For years, Cleveland had a hard time outliving its environmental disaster reputation as the mistake on the lake. But other unexpected places also burned without kindling, like piles of tires. In Hagersville, Ontario, a fire started in a pile of 14 million car tires. In 1990, they burned for 17 days and nearly forced 4,000 people to evacuate. A single tire contains about the equivalent of 7.5 liters of oil. In this fire, that would have been 105 million liters of oil, enough to fill 42 Olympic-sized pools. In order for a car tire to catch fire, it needs to be heated for at least 20 minutes at 400 degrees Celsius. And putting out tire fires is extremely difficult. Water won't work. It just produces a slick, oily sludge. Smothering the burning tires with soil or sand is the best option. The longest burning tire fire blazed for 2.5 years, from August 1998 until December 2000. The fire ended up torching 7 million tires at a dump in Tracy, California. Other fires hang on even longer. The former coal mining town of Centralia, Pennsylvania literally sits on a hot plate. Started by burning trash in a mine 45 years ago, the coal seams are burning 100 meters underground. Constant access to oxygen through caves and rock fissures keep the embers smoldering. Need a cup of tea? The groundwater in that town is over 100 degrees Celsius in places. It's like living over a volcano. No surprise, most of the town finally accepted a government buyout in the 1980s and left. The fires are expected to last another 250 years. But if you think that's a long burner, try this. 300 kilometers north of Sydney, Australia, scientists believe a huge coal seam has been burning for 6,000 years. Known as Burning Mountain, it's the oldest known coal fire in the world. 19th century explorers mistook the sulfurous smoke as a volcano. When the ground you walk on turns out to be like a giant charcoal barbecue, you need to rethink what can burn and where a fire can't go. Maybe this ought to be a new fire prevention rule. Wherever, whenever, always carry a portable fire extinguisher.
Who knew all those fires were burning underneath us? Next up, from fires to the wettest hotel on the planet. See you in a bit. Welcome back to Cooler Facts. How do bridges stay up? Here I am suspended 40 feet above an urban highway, standing on tons of concrete. But again, I ask you, how do these things stay up?
The world's longest bridge extends 38.4 kilometers across Louisiana's Lake Pontchartrain. The conventional bridge is made of 9,500 steel pilings supporting concrete spans that are collectively longer than Long Island. But the truth is, some shorter bridges pose much bigger engineering challenges. Like spanning across an earthquake zone in water up to 65 meters deep on a seabed of loose sediment. That's why the 2,880-meter Rion and Tyrion Bridges piers are sitting on top of leveled gravel reinforced by steel pipes rather than buried deep into the ground. When the earth shakes, the piers move side to side and absorb the seismic energy. If you're worried about shaking, You might not want to peek through a glass-floored skywalk that sticks 20 meters out and hangs 1,200 meters over the Grand Canyon. Built 14.5 meters into the rock, the horseshoe-shaped walkway contains 455 tons of steel, cantilevered to sustain the weight of 71 fully loaded Boeing 747s and the force of an 8.0 magnitude earthquake within 80 kilometers. Can you imagine a plastic bridge? Well, it already exists. A 2001 California highway bridge is made of carbon fiber composite tubes encased in plastic and a deck of fiberglass panels instead of steel girders and reinforced concrete. The girders are light enough that 4 men can manage what normally requires a construction crane. And without steel, subject to corrosion, the bridge is less susceptible to damage from salt and water. Sometimes it's not just the traffic that moves, some bridges do too. But the Gateshead Millennium Bridge in Newcastle, England moves differently than your standard drawbridge. A bank of 6 hydraulic rams tilts the entire 773-ton steel structure 40 degrees, so large ships can pass under it in just 4 minutes. Maybe the most daring engineering is to imagine a bridge in one of the most hostile environments, across the Bering Strait. This proposed 80-kilometer Arctic super bridge would span more than twice the length of the Lake Pontchartrain Causeway. Construction challenges include working in sub-zero temperatures and sustaining hits from ice flows. A design already exists for ice flow-resistant bridge pylons. They're shaped like the prow of an icebreaker. The biggest obstacle for this bridge is the price tag, an estimated $100 billion US. But the prospect of Russian oil piping across Siberia to the hungry US market might make this project happen. And with new engineering advances and gas prices, we may cross that bridge sooner than you think.
Okay, now I feel a bit better about bridges, but big buildings, well, that's another matter, especially the one you can fly a jet through.
Architects and builders have been pushing the limits for centuries. Some of the world's most amazing buildings are built out of experimental materials and in the oddest of places. China's Central Television Network's new Beijing headquarters consist of 2 leaning towers that bend 90 degrees at the top to form a continuous tube. The 30-story high hull of this gigantic steel and glass donut is big enough to fly a Learjet through. The office floor space for 10,000 people is second only in size to the world's largest building, the US Pentagon. The Jubilee Church that opened in Rome in 2003 is made of a special concrete that does not discolor. It not only cleans itself, it also cleans the air by eating surrounding smog. It contains titanium dioxide that triggers a chemical reaction that accelerates oxidation, destroying air pollutants. In New Mexico, there are Hobbit-style pods called Earth ships made from old tires and pop bottles. They survive entirely off the electrical and water grids. The home gets water from rain that collects on the roof. Whatever is used for dishes gets siphoned through a filter of gravel and plant roots. Then it's used again in the bathroom. Considering that the average US household drinks, flushes, and washes about 482,000 liters of water a year, enough to fill over 3,000 bathtubs, these Earth ships are seriously self-sustaining. The Great Mosque of Jenne in Mali is the largest mud brick or adobe building in the world, with a base 40 by 40 meters, about half a football field. It's been the site of a mosque since 1240, but the current version dates from 1907. In the world of experimental architecture, Dubai is the promised land. And when the sky's the limit, go for a swim. Take a look at Hydropolis, promised to be the world's first luxury underwater hotel, to be 20 meters under the Red Sea. This $500 million resort will feature lavish suites, a ballroom, a shopping mall, and a missile defense system to ward off terrorists. To date, it's only on the drawing boards, so don't hold your breath. After all, there are already many other extreme buildings to visit.
An underwater hotel? Only in Dubai. Stick around right after the break. With robots on the cutting edge of science, Why model one after a lobster? More cooler facts heading your way. Welcome back to Cooler Facts, where we present science and technology with a little twist and a bit of a surprise. I'm Kim Jake Tiani. Robots are on the cutting edge of science, but today's robots don't look anything like R2-D2.
For decades now, we've been dreaming of walking and talking robots, androids to help vacuum or make dinner. Well, robots have arrived, just not in the shape or places you'd expect. At Harvard University, they have invented a robotic fly the size of a penny. The RoboFly weighs 60 milligrams, the same as a few grains of rice. A tiny motor beats its wings 120 times per second. The force is 5 times more powerful by weight than the muscles of a real fly. In the future, these tiny flyers will conduct surveillance on the battlefield. The US military already has 4,000 reconnaissance robots scouting for roadside bombs and hunting down insurgent hideouts in Afghanistan. That's the same as 1 robot for every 10 human soldiers over there. In New York, robot takes on a new meaning at this parking garage. It works like a giant robotic jukebox. When you drop off your car, laser and radar sensors confirm the passengers are gone. Elevators whisk the cars away and stack them like pop cans several cars deep. To retrieve the car, swipe a card and the system delivers it in less than 2.5 minutes. That's faster than any valet. Plus, no tip required. Inside the human body, this tiny caterpillar-sized robot will soon help surgeons repair human hearts. Once inserted through a tiny keyhole incision, the robot uses its sucker-like feet to crawl over the heart's surface to position pacemaker leads or inject dyes. Mother Nature is a great inspiration for robotics. That's why scientists turned to the amazing lobster. Turns out they have an incredible ability to sense minute odors in the sea and hunt them down. So, engineers built the Robo-Lobster, a 2 kilogram, 60 centimeter long robot underwater bloodhound. Instead of getting dipped in butter, it uses fiber optic antenna to sniff out hidden mines or locate the source of pollutants leaching into the water. Even humans can use a hard outer skin. Consider the US military's plans to muscle up soldiers. Wearing this robotic exoskeleton, a soldier can carry ammunition boxes the weight of bags of concrete without getting tired. A consumer version is in production for Japan's aging population. The 15-kilo battery-powered HAL-5 responds to electrical impulses on the operator's skin and converts them into instructions to the suit. The cyborg has arrived.
Imagine having a pet robot named Spot. Robots should be able to work for us for an entire lifetime, but they can't hold a candle compared to our sun. It's been doing its job for over 5 billion years, and it's only just reached middle age. More cool facts about our sun and the stars around us when we come back. Welcome back. Who's your favorite Hollywood star? Julia Roberts? Harrison Ford? Mine's right up there. And here's something even the tabloids don't know about my favorite star, the sun.
The life of a star is so violent, so enormous, it staggers the imagination. Our sun, the star closest to us, is no exception. Its raw material is so powerful, just a pinhead's worth could kill someone at a distance of 160 meters. Its visible surface is a fierce churning cauldron of billions of furnace-like cells called granules, each one a kilometer in size. Granules explode, spewing their material into the solar atmosphere at 1,600 kilometers per hour. That's like rocketing over 10 football fields in a second. It's an outrageous understatement to say the sun is hot. The surface is 6,000 degrees Celsius, rising to over 15 million degrees at the core. The enormity of its heat output is mind-boggling. 400 trillion watts. That's 40,000 watts of light from every square inch of its surface. the brightness of 700 standard household bulbs emanating from an area the size of a quarter. Pretty breathtaking when you consider the sun's actual size, 1.4 million kilometers in diameter, 330 times larger than Earth. If it were the size of a beach ball, the Earth would be a pea. And that's just one star amid more than 100 billion in the Milky Way. Next to some other stars, the sun is downright puny. Betelgeuse, one of the stars in the Orion Belt, is a staggering 500 million kilometers in diameter. If it were hollow, the Earth would comfortably revolve around the sun inside it. Alpha Centauri, the nearest star visible by the naked eye, is 4.5 light years away. It would take almost 5 years to get there. If our sun were scaled down to the size of a period on a printed page, Alpha Centauri would be about 14 kilometers away. Because it works so hard, the sun will eventually burn out. The sun's been doing its thing for about 5 billion years. It'll probably do it for another 5 billion. At the end of its life, the star that nurtured us for so long will care little for us. The solar wind will become a cyclone that may even evaporate the atmosphere. The sun, as other stars have done, will explode into a supernova, eventually spinning itself into a neutron star. There is a bright side. The heat from the sun dying may be warm enough to melt the water-rich but frozen moons of Jupiter and Saturn. We humans, if we're still around, might relocate there.
And I thought moving from India to Canada was a big move. Well, that's it for this edition of Cooler Facts, the show that presents a different twist on everything from the coldest place on Earth to the animal with the deadliest bite. I'm Kim Jake Tiani. Catch you next time for more Cooler Facts.